let's get started, y'all. How are we doing today? Let me get my iPad, charger, get my phone right here. How is everybody doing today on this fine Wednesday? Got a little bit of music to start the live today. Shout out to all my people on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, YouTube, Twitch. Twitter. I say Twitter at the end. How are y'all doing? Knoxville, Tennessee in the house. You already know what to do. When you come in, let me know your location. So I can know where you're checking in from. Ashley, what's up? Laniqua, Thema, what's going on? We have an exciting topic today. We're talking about ADHD and hypersexuality. Did I put that? Okay, I did. Leah says, wow, I'm ready for this. She's ready. Can't be both. Oh. Well, let's talk about it. Texas, Toronto, Virginia, Houston, Pennsylvania, everybody on the East Coast, you all be careful. There's a winter storm coming, apparently, and I know it's supposed to get bad. Like, we're talking Friday night into the morning. So you all be careful out there, my folks on the East Coast. And for us who are in California, we're gonna, enjoy this nice weather. But you all be careful over there. Ottawa in the house, Las Vegas, Ontario, Charleston, Vancouver. Hydra. We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about it. Georgia, Florida, Michigan, North Conway, New Hampshire, Montreal. Okay, so people are checking in. Super ready for this. All right, so I got some pulled up for y'all. A little article from Psychology Today. I want to let people come in. Well, a lot of people are already in, so I guess we'll have to wait. Yeah, so let's get into it. So today's topic is ADHD and hypersexuality. And if you're watching my live for the first time, we've been streaming for about a week now, and I just called it Late Night with Dr. Kojo because I go on, late at night, and this is my show. And we broadcast all these different platforms, and in the beginning of the show I talk about a certain topic like the one I have here today, and then towards the end I will answer you all's questions. So I see the comments coming in, and I love it because I love the engagement, but I will answer you all's questions towards the end. But yeah, shout out to the people in Mississippi, Rutherford County, El Paso. Okay, thanks for explaining things to my significant other. Yeah, I've become a relationship coach. First timer. Okay, this is Katie's first time. She gets a random love of the show, and that's Katie. Yeah, random love of the show. Cincinnati. Oh my gosh, a Bengals fan. Way to throw off my mood. We're trying to have a good live and talk about this topic, and somebody's trying to remind me of that awful football game this past weekend. But let's get into it because it's depressing to think about life as a Titans fan. All right, so today we're talking about ADHD and hypersexuality. And, ADHD does not lead to hypersexuality. So I don't want you all to be thrown out by the title. Just because you have ADHD does not mean you're hypersexual. Just the same way as somebody who, is in a manic episode, they're not automatically hypersexual. You can't just take a condition and say, oh, somebody's hypersexual because of that, right? And even with hypersexuality, it's a very delicate thing, to to talk about, especially for me as a man. This is my experience. If I'm a man and I'm talking to a patient, and I'm talking to a patient, and especially if it's a lady, you have to find a nice way to ask these questions because first of all, you don't want to offend anybody, and then you have to be delicate when you ask about these topics, right? So when you say hypersexuality, at least for me, I think to myself like, okay, for you, what's a normal, normal subjective, right? But what's normal? What's the normal amount of sex for you in a week, in a month, in a year, right? So take whatever is normal for you, right? And then, increase that by a lot, and sometimes it might not be a bad thing, right? Like when is sex a bad thing? I don't think it's a bad thing, but if it's at a point where you feel like it's too much, or you feel like it's interfering with, like parts of your life. And the impairment is the thing that I want people to pay attention to. Like, how is this thing affecting your life, right? It's just like when people, for those of y'all who have ADHD, when somebody comes to you and say, "Oh, I have a friend who's like a little ADHD," right? Now, I might not correct somebody because I know what they're trying to say, but you can't really be a little ADHD. You either have it or you don't, right? And for those who have it, it has significantly impacted your life, right? The impairment is there, so that's why it's an issue. So likewise with hypersexuality, I think it really becomes a problem when there's like impairment there, right? Like if you and your partner have like a healthy sex life, and for some reason they just need more, right? And you just need more, right? And we're all busy, we're all working, we're doing all these different things, right? And one thing that I did not know about sex, like when I was 17 or 18, I was just a kid in high school. So I thought that like sex is something that, oh, you get a girlfriend, you get a wife, whatever the case is, you have sex. You just have a lot of sex, right? Just sex on top of sex on top of sex. And as I became an adult, I'm like, you know what? There are things in life that are better than sex. Peace of mind is better than sex. My football team winning the Super Bowl would be better than sex. Having a supportive, system of family members and friends, people who love you, that could be better than sex. So there's things that are better than it, right? And everybody is, busy living your life. And as an adult, sometimes like when you're busy paying bills and trying to raise kids or taking care of Asian parents, you might not think about sex, right? Even as guys, you might not think about sex. I see you all saying Titans, Titans, Titans in the chat. Hopefully my team wins the Super Bowl next year. But you might not pay attention to sex, right? But it becomes an issue when, like, I think like when the person that you're with, is either undersatisfied or they feel like it's too much to the point where it's an issue for them. Or, probably the most common, you see my dog in the background, the most common way that I think hypersexuality can be an issue is if it's leading to like, risky decisions, right? Impulsive decisions because you just kind of need sex, right? Now, if you're like, and some people, like the definition, some people will say like, oh, um, I just want sex all the time for my partner. And if your partner doesn't have an issue, I don't think that's an issue. That's not something that needs, at least for me, I don't, that's y'all's business. Like, that's cool. But it becomes an issue where like you have that, you know, um, sometimes compulsive need for it. And you're like, all right, I need it. I need it. I need it. I need it. And then like how, to what lengths will you go to get it? And like when we talk about addiction, right? Not saying, not to talk about whether sex addiction is a thing or not, but like to what lengths will you go to get this one thing that you really, really, really crave, and that's when it might be problematic. I start to look into that, like how far will you go to get it, and then there's a whole realm of hypersexuality, and that's how I kind of look at it. And when we talk about ADHD and hypersexuality, you think that people, well, we know a couple things with ADHD, right? You need like novelty in a sense. You need something new. You need things that are exciting. You need to be stimulated. So that's why, like, when you first meet somebody, when you first get like a new hobby or something, like it's exciting, and over time, it's gonna wear off, right? And you're gonna need something else. But as we know in a relationship, I'm talking about um, a one-to-one relationship. I know there's different types of relationships, right? And I'm gonna learn more about the polyamory and all that stuff, and hopefully I can bring people on this show and get people's perspective on that. But I'm just talking about like your standard relationship, right? One person and another person. It can be difficult if there's like if the energies aren't matching. Somebody's here, somebody's there, and I actually see dang. Somebody's calling the people thirsty assholes. These are lovely subscribers. I don't want to put a label on my followers. But Alicia has a good comment that caught my eye. Let's talk about the pressure it adds to relationship when one is more hypersexual than the other, and also has rejection sensitivity. All right, so I'll just say this: when one person is more sexual than the other person, right? So it can add a lot of pressure to the relationship. And you mentioned the a rejection sensitivity. So her feelings, it's a real thing, and the way you feel about something can impact, like it can impact a lot of things, intimacy included. So when you talk about, like, for example, we say hypersexuality, right? Let's take, you got this guy, you got this girl, right? And I know you can have different types of relationships, but I'm just saying this to make it easy, right? You got this guy and you got a girl, right? And they're dating, and for some reason, let's just say the guy wants it more than the girl, and the girl doesn't want it. But she used to want it just as much as the guy wanted it. But he said something to her, he didn't realize that he said it, and it hurt her feelings, and she never spoke up about it. So over time, her interest kind of like went a little bit lower, and she wasn't in the mood as much, right? So now it'll look like he wants it a lot, and she doesn't want it. But that might not be the thing. It might just really be that he, went on a date with her to Applebee's. Y'all were eating a 2 for $20, and then he was like, "Oh, you have a lot of calories on your plate." I don't know, something that may have just like, mess up the mood. And people really, really like to hold on to the things that you say. So you gotta be careful with what you say and try and like mentally filter your words before you say things. So in that situation, right, I think the guy is hypersexual and the girl has no desire. It just means that maybe something was said that hurt somebody's feelings, and that's why the energies are not matching. I'm sort of saying me and my girl, or it's my girl and I, but either way, me and my girl stalk each other. Is that a bad thing? I don't know what you're talking about with that. Stalk each other. I don't know what you're talking about that. But that leads me to this article right here from Dr. Jory Goodman on Psychology Today. Is the title is called Hypersexuality, Sex Addiction, and ADHD. And he says people with ADHD seek novelty and stimulation. I agree with that. The former is a response to easy boredom. The latter is a response to the need to mobilize neurotransmitters that make one feel calm and good, right? And we're talking about dopamine here. Medications that treat ADHD mobilize primarily dopamine and noradrenaline. Dopamine is the brain's primary feel-good substance. It releases in, okay, I know that. All right, cool. So I'm trying to get to the meat of the article. All right, so this is his opinion, right? This is coming from Dr. Jory Goodman. I'll just read this out. Children with ADHD frequently bite their fingernails, have something in their mouth filled with things. The most innervated parts of the body are in the mouth, lips, tongue, fingers, and genitalia. Hence, adolescents and adults with ADHD often masturbate a lot. The stimulation is extraordinarily calming for them, and climax releases a flow of dopamine in the pleasure center of the brain. Promiscuity, hypersexuality, and sex addiction often ensue. Keep in mind, this is not like a peer-reviewed article or say. This is coming from Dr. Jordan Goodman, so these are his thoughts. I don't know if I necessarily agree with it. And hear me out. I'm not sure if I agree with it all the way, but there's something to be said about the dopamine seeking. Like anybody likes attention, but with ADHD, need new things to excite you all the time. Sometimes I feel like when two people are intimate, it might not even be the sex that person is like craving. Maybe they just want a hug. Maybe they just need a damn hug, and that's their way of being intimate. So it gets deeper than just the sex. But when you have that type of personality and you really like new things, and you don't have an outlet on how to express that, that's when I think you could fall into, this realm of hypersexuality. And with dopamine, I see it more so as, it's like the anticipation of the thing, right? So like, for those of y'all who get paid on Fridays, right? Every other Friday, bi-weekly, weekly, whatever, how on Thursday night, you check your phone, your regions, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and you're waiting for that check to hit Thursday night. You're so excited on Thursday night, and then you check your phone in the morning, Friday morning, and the check is hit, and like you're excited, right? So that's all the dopamine there is, the anticipation of the thing, which is exciting. So likewise, I think with the hypersexuality thing, when it comes to like, risky decision making or multiple like sexual partners more than what's normal for you. I always include that last part because you can't judge people. And sometimes if somebody has a system going and they have multiple partners, and everybody knows it's probably safer than somebody else who's like in a one-on-one relationship getting cheated on. Just my opinion. But when you have somebody seeking dopamine from all these different places, and they don't know what's going on, right? The tendency to take a risk or gamble could be a little high, right? And it might not be premeditated. So I think I explained this before. Like if you meet somebody and you decide to do the Mickey Ficky, right? Normally you would think about it, ask them, you got checked out, blah, 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 blah. You go get protection, birth control. But when you just crave that dopamine and you just need the stimulation, there's a tendency that you might just be like, oh, whatever, boom, 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 boom. And that's where I think it becomes an issue, because you don't know what people have. Like, I mean, you should take your time. Not that you shouldn't do it or you should do it, but you should take your time and just kind of, you can't really feel somebody out by looking at them. Like you should think. Like if you give yourself time to think, like time defeats impulsive decisions, right? If you think you want to do this or do that or do this, if you give yourself time, I mean, you still might make the wrong decision, right? But you're giving yourself a chance to make a bit of a better decision. So those are my thoughts. And I don't think hypersexuality is like when you think of hypersexuality, right? Like at least for me, when I hear that term, outside of like a medical term, I think of like somebody who's a hornbug, right? Like, damn, that person's a hornbug, or I don't know what you all call it, where y'all are from. I'm from the South, so I say a lot of y'alls and ma'ams and things like that. But I think when the hypersexuality gets to a point where you and other people are affected, then I'm like, all right, we have an issue here. And as we know, or you might not know, but medications for ADHD, and that's why it's so fascinating, right? Besides me having ADHD, just stating it, like this is the most treatable psychiatric condition by far. It's not even close, right? Like you think of like depression, anxiety, ADHD, bipolar, schizophrenia, eating disorders, just have them all in the bag, right? In terms of like the most treatable condition, like ADHD is here and everything else is right there. Like this is the most treatable condition. So it's kind of baffling that people are not getting treatment. But there's evidence that shows, and this is evidence-based information, so I can speak this with conviction. My dog right there. That medications help to reduce a lot of things for people with ADHD. They help to cut back on the risk of car accidents. They help to cut back on substance use, right? Drinking and taking all kinds of different substances. And they also help to cut back on STDs, or STIs in teenagers. And I think that's fascinating because, like, a teenager like me at 17, my goodness, like it's a good thing I wasn't in Los Angeles at the age of 17. Like my mom would never let me run around the city. Being 17 and just kind of, being just a kid, like I'd be out here just doing whatever, just because I'm 17. I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna do this. And of course, like you have the ADHD component, but for teenagers, when you have, when you have that friend circle where you're young, you feel vibrant, you feel like you can do anything, and then you throw in the ADHD there with impulsivity, you can make decisions at 17, 18 that could kind of mess you up for life, or at least set you back, so that's why the education is important, because maybe, and I know the meds don't work for everybody, but they work for a lot of people. When they work, I'll say that. When they work, and if it can help you not be in car accidents, right? Avoid, substances and avoid STIs. I think that's a pretty good thing. I don't know about y'all, but I think that's a pretty good thing. Someone says, when you sleep, I sleep at night. What kind of question is that? So that's my little monologue on that. Just want to get my thoughts out. Now let me go into people's comments and see where the direction goes. Hypersexuality can feel like crazy inside. It used to really get to me. That comment comes from Libby. Yeah, I think it can. I think it can make you feel. Oh, gosh, why do dogs like socks? My goodness, it can make you feel, weird in a sense, and sometimes people have to be validated in their feelings, and if you don't have somebody who, it's all about the energy matching, right? If you have a high drive and you're somebody who has a high drive, is great. If you have like a super low drive and the person you're with or the people you're with have a super low drive, I think that's fine, right? Because like this is your life. Like you're not living your life to please your neighbor. Like this is your life. Nikki Nico, I appreciate that. Um, Katie says, well explained. I appreciate that. Like when you have sex while driving. Oh, Mickey Ficky. Whoa, whoa. Well, I mean, hey, you can't judge people's lifestyles, but uh, it doesn't sound too safe. It doesn't sound too safe. I'm trying to picture that in my mind and like filter what I say before I say it. I know we're live on many platforms. Can you post a link to the article? Yeah, I'm posting to the article. See if I can drop it in here. Control C. This is coming from Dr. Jory Goodman. This is his thoughts, not like a randomized controlled trial or anything like that. Okay, all right. So let me post. I posted article there for y'all who want it. Someone says, "You seem so subdued tonight. Are you good?" Yeah, I'm good. So I think this is one thing that people, well, at least like for me, when I was growing up in school, like when I would go to school and I didn't have like all the jokes. People are like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yo, I'm good. I forgot to make a joke today," and I make a joke, and everybody, "Oh, no." Some days you have chill days, and some days you have days with a lot of energy. And today, I guess it's a chill day. It's been fairly productive. You can't even complain. The soft from your sweat. What are you talking about? More ADHD on. Oh, yeah, Terrell McFly. Yes, Terrell. I'm happy you said that. You need a. I do need a moderator, and I use StreamYard, so I'm not sure how to moderate this type of stuff. But yeah, I need a moderator. I'll probably pick a moderator out of my subscriber group and figure that out. Oh, I'm looking at Kathleen's comment. It's hilarious. I won't read it out, but I think it's hilarious. Oh boy, that's funny. But yeah, a moderator would be great. I'm gonna have to figure out how to get that because I'm sure as I'm talking, right, and I'm just going through my little rant in the beginning, people are dropping some dope questions or something that I don't want to forget. So I do need a moderator at some point, and I definitely will get that. But I don't want to be too perfect. And for people with ADHD, I always say don't wait, like just do, like you just have to do. And like as I do this, like watch this show right now on January 26th, and watch this same show a year from now. Like it's gonna be fancy. I'm probably gonna convert one of the rooms in my house, maybe this room or something. I'll convert this whole place, and it'll look like fancy. I have like a little streaming setup. Like yeah, it's gonna get better. It's gonna get better. I think you got that covered on your own. I was once told that sex drive is a use it or lose it thing. If you're abstaining, eventually you lose a desire. Or if you're used to having sex and you keep a sex drive. Janet K, I don't know. Like I don't know if I can speak on that with evidence. I don't know. Good question. Like I told you, I'm humble enough to say I don't know what I don't know. But as a man, this is just me as a man. Like I could go, whatever period of time without sex, I'm not gonna lose interest in it. I think it's just that's how I don't know. I don't say most men, but I've it's funny. I've spoken to some of my old coworkers. I remember a conversation I had with a friend of mine. She's a nurse back in Georgia. I won't mention her name, obviously, but she told me that after her divorce, she was a single mom, so she was focused on making money and taking care of her child. And then she said that she was celibate for 10 years before she got a boyfriend and, started to do her thing. And me and my buddy were like, whoa, you were celibate for 10 years? And she said she was fine. So, I mean, for her, it worked out. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. 10 years, like, I'm not doing that. That's not right for me. But I mean, if it works for somebody, it works. If it works for you, it works for you. It works for you. Kat Sass, I'm happy that you joined from Twitch. What's up? What's up? Is there a way we can talk? I have to make questions. What's your question? I'll try and pick it out from here. Audrey, I appreciate you. And somebody asking about meds. I can't recommend I can't legally recommend like one medication over the other. The best I can say is a psychiatric evaluation. So stop being on me, Laura. I appreciate that, and Haley, Haley, I appreciate you. Thank you. I finally got a good medication. Yeah, and once again, like if these meds, like I said, if there's a medication that, you know, I told you it could reduce car accident for people with ADHD, of course, reduce the likelihood of car accidents, substance use disorders, and sexually transmitted infections. You would want to look into that, right? Because those are all three things that I don't want. So down, sit down. Those are all three things that I don't want. How do I express to my partner my need for sex when he's just home from prison? I feel guilty or rejected when he doesn't seem interested. Ooh, Mickey Ficky. This is a good ass question right here. I'll read it again for those of y'all who are just like tuning in. How do I express to my partner my need for sex when he's just home from prison, 6 years locked up? I feel guilty or rejected when he doesn't seem interested. This is a good question because after somebody's done a significant amount of time and you come back into like the world, it's a big adjustment. So, what are you doing? I think my dog got ADHD. But anyway, when you come back into the world after being incarcerated, it's a huge adjustment. Like 6 years, 2016, like when he first got locked up, you know, we were on what, the iPhone 5, iPhone 6? I don't know. Like life is so much different now. So believe it or not, like I can see how maybe he came from prison and like sex is not the first thing on his mind. Maybe he's trying to think about how to get a bank account. What job can I get as a like with whatever? Let's say he has a felony. You know, as a felon, I'm just saying that for the example. But I do think it is important to talk about that because uh, I don't just write things off, right? If one person is not satisfied, the other person, you know, is satisfied. Like he might be okay with where he's at, and you're not okay. I would not ignore that personally because like I wouldn't ignore it, you know. And you have to work towards a solution, whether it's he's more mindful of it or I don't know, opening the relationship. I'm not giving you advice. I'm not giving you advice, but you know, when you talk about a problem, right, and it's not solution based, you're gonna be more frustrated. Like you're going in circles. So like, you know, maybe like figure out like why, like what's going on. Like does he need time to get back into society? Maybe he's just, you know, there's so many things. And as guys, I don't think we speak up about like mental health enough or what's going on with us. So maybe he just needs somebody to listen to him. Maybe he just needs a hug, just a hug. Like a lot of people need a hug. Like maybe I should open up a business where like I hire people and we just hug people. You know, like after COVID, but like he might just need a hug. He might need a hug. I don't know. Um, Prisoners are prepared before transitioning. Oh, Ashley, what's up? Thank you for mentioning that. And yeah, I feel like you would prepare a prisoner, but it's still gotta be tough. Like if I was locked away for even like a month, that'd be like a huge adjustment. So yeah, that'd be a huge adjustment. Stephanie, instead of watching Facebook, say you're watching a Dr. Talk show. That's hilarious. Um, Jordan says, if your relationship is not grounded in respect for people and your partner and is based around agendas, yeah, relationships should be grounded around sex. Cameo says, high spells of sex drive did not want to think about it for weeks. Well, I mean, once again, like it's so hard, like, and just like reading somebody's question, like I don't know the person, I don't know who you are, so it's hard to be like, I think it's that or I think it's this, but like there's periods of time, like maybe you have a high drive and then you get to the point where like you get to maybe May, and like May is the time of the year when you lost somebody a couple years ago, so like you go into a funk. There's so many things that can affect like someone's sex drive, ADHD being one, but there's so many things that can affect it. Oh my gosh. All right. A question coming from Facebook. Is it normal to have the sex drive bounce back and forth? I went 2 years celibate, but then I went like hyper crazy focus, and now I'm back and forth since then. How do I explain this to my partner that is not him, it's me, and I don't like him A-list? I just want to sometimes. It's a good question, and it sometimes seeing a therapist, sometimes seeing a sex therapist, sometimes seeing a professional can be helpful. I think people have to hear things from somebody else outside their partner for it to kind of like stick. That's why people, when they send my videos to the significant other, like it hits different. Like, oh, somebody else is saying what I've been saying my whole life, you know. So you may need to be validated. Uh, this dog is everywhere. You may need to be validated differently, but I do think it's important to talk about it. You have to speak up about it so that way he knows that it's not him, you know, because if you don't sit down and have a conversation, this is what could happen, right? You could be like, I don't want to, and you know, we use the term paranoia loosely, but any guy could be like, all right, so my girl all of a sudden doesn't want to do it, and like for me, I'd be like, is this person seeing somebody else, or you know, and like you can go down a long rabbit hole trying to check people's iCloud and messages, and maybe you just don't feel like it, you know, so the key is to communicate. And I mean, like if you happen to have ADHD or whatever is going on, you know, getting to the bottom of that and working out with a professional goes a long way. Goes a long way. Ooh, see, that's that club soda making me burp like that. Um, let me see. What job has been so influential? Huge. Hire me to hug. Haley says she needs to be hired to hug people. Oh boy. Does moodiness go hand in hand with ADHD? A lot of times they can, but you can also be moody just because you don't feel like it that day. Um, and a question here. Let me see. Uh, I noticed that the job was never the same with other partners. It became eradicated. Some of that reason, I'm apart. Not every. I'm able to follow that right there, but one thing I do want to say, of course, we have a big ADHD community up here, you know, but sometimes if like, of course, like let's anytime there's a significant change in your life with anything, it's never a bad idea to find a professional in your area and talk it through and see how you can get back to like that level of functioning. You know, everybody has ups and downs, you know, like for me, I have ups and downs too, but I always make sure that like I'm still like, you know, maintaining. Like you can be up, you can be down, but you have to still maintain. And if you're not like all the way there, sometimes you have to ask yourself, do I have a problem? It might be a time to see, you know, somebody. So keep that in mind. But with that being said, sometimes if your sex drive just goes away, I gotta say, you might just not like that person, or you might not like them anymore. You know, because sometimes people, like I've heard this from multiple people and patients before, where they'll say things like, "Oh, I thought, like I thought something was wrong with me, and felt like I wasn't like a sexual person anymore." But along the way, they no longer like that. People grow, you know, and they no longer have that attraction to that person. You know, like when you really like somebody and like beyond their looks, right? Obviously, you wouldn't be with somebody that you're not attracted to like physically, but once that's out the way, you know, there's little things that people can do that make them more attractive, you know, in your eyes. So it's not just the looks, but like it goes deeper, right? And at least speaking from like a perspective of a straight male, like you know, I think respect is important when it comes to us as men. So I think you know, like obviously you have to be attracted to somebody. You can't force attraction. I just don't think you can do that. You can try, but you might not. It won't work. But as a male, let's say you're attracted to somebody and the respect goes out the window. Your sex drive might go as well because you no longer want to be around that person. And it's not. It doesn't have to do with like sex. It just has to do with I don't want that energy in my space. I don't want. It's like bad vibes. I don't want that. Right. I don't want that. I have a question about how you. Ooh. It's a good. Someone said never thought about that. Yeah, that's why I gotta get y'all to think about things that you don't normally think about. But I have a really good question here from Facebook. Ooh, this is a good question right here because I think a lot of people might want to know the answer to this. And like as I'm reading it, I'm trying to think about my answer, and I'm stalling on purpose because I'm not sure if I know the answer. But I have a question about how you would go about telling your partner you are unhappy with the amount of sex you are currently having, even though it's awkward. It's a potential breakup situation or a deal breaker. That's a really good question. And here's the thing: you have to tell them, or you don't have to, but you would want to communicate the information somehow. To let them know. And once you let them know, it's no longer on you. You let them know, hey, like you can let them know, hey, in the beginning things were like this, and now it's not there, and I feel like this is a need. And I think it's a fundamental need, like food, like air, like water, like you need sex in a sense, like if you get it, you get it. But you have to let them know somehow that, hey, this is an issue for me. Um, because if you sometimes you try and make a decision for somebody else because you don't trust their reaction to what you would say. And I've done that many times in my life where I'm like, I don't think this person will like this, but now I've learned, the importance of, like, sometimes having a confrontation is not bad. Like, it's not a argument, it's a discussion. Like, let's get to the root of the problem, right? You might reach out to your partner and say, hey, like, I'm kind of unhappy with the amount of, sex we're having. And then they're like, oh, I didn't think you would notice, but I've been depressed for the past month and a half. Work has been hard for me. So that's why, right? Now, if this was the situation, right, then you'd be like, oh, damn, like, I didn't even think about that, as opposed to you being like, what are they doing? Are they cheating? I know they're cheating. Let's just go to their social media. I need your password, or get to the point where you're like, all right, I'm just going to find somebody. Like, whether you find somebody else or not is not the point. Like, it's about working towards, like, having that healthy discussion as an adult. But it's a hard thing to say, and it might be awkward. I'm not gonna lie to you. It really might be awkward, because you tell your partner we have to talk, and then their anxiety kicks into overdrive, and you're sitting there looking at them, and they're looking at you, and you're like, yeah, you forget what you want to say. So it's gonna be awkward, but you have to, you have to, you don't have to, but you want to talk about it. Um, Luckily, he's understanding, but I feel awful about it. Right, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with feeling bad about it. But you have to keep in mind that, like, real relationships are not like Instagram. Like, it's not like I remember. I remember telling my a girl I was dating back maybe 2017 in first year of grad school. Like, I had a joke that, like, I wish I could, like, take her phone and, like, block Instagram, because she would go on Instagram and see all these couple stuff, and he took me here, he took me to Niagara Falls, and I'm like, I'm in college, like, my money's tight, like, I can't, like, we might could do the Georgia Aquarium. I can't take you to no Niagara Falls, like, like, real relationships are, I would say, they're kind of boring, in a sense, and it's really just two people who should be committed to understanding each other, like, like, you're not, but if you look on TV, right, or you look at the movies that are produced here in Hollywood, like, everybody is having the greatest sex of their life. Everybody's like, like, it's not like that. Like, I watched a little bit of that sex life thing on Netflix. I thought it was whack. I had to turn it off. I'm like, that's not like real. Like, that's not real. I don't know. It's not real. I went to college at Augusta University. Niagara Falls is overrated. Well, ask Instagram. If you look at a couple on Instagram, they're gonna make Niagara Falls look like it's the most beautiful thing. I don't know. I just thought of that place randomly. And yeah, some people do ketamine for depression. We're gonna have that discussion with the psychedelics and depression. Love should conquer. Love should conquer all. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't. Let me see. What's the conversation that people are having? Real relationships are arguments over dishes and shit. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's what it is. Like, I almost feel like you. How do I say this? Oh boy, like, I have like a filter in my mind before I say things, because I know that I don't want to get canceled. But real relationships, you might have, like, a little bit of disdain for them. That's a nice way of trying to say what I'm really trying to say. But I mean, if you're around somebody so much, like, you pick up on their tendencies, you're like, but, like, you love them, right? You love them. If it's the right person, it's not boring. Find joy in the simple things and each other's. Oh, right. So, Claudia, when I say boring, I mean like just kind of like you have a routine. Pretty much my main thing is that you're not going to Disney every day. Like you don't have that consistent dopamine rush coming in every day. And when you talk about ADHD and hypersexuality, sometimes it might just be that the person's not stimulated enough, and it might come out as maybe sex is how they get that stimulation or attention. So like that whole realm of hypersexuality is just so like just so large. So I always like to get to the root of the issue. I remember shout out to Dr. Syria. That's one of the psychiatrists who was training me back in Georgia. But he would always talk about get to the root of the issue, right? Like you might just see somebody, or you might read like, oh, they've had how many sexual partners, and like you'll start to think like, oh, they're X, Y, and Z. But maybe I don't know. Maybe it was some childhood trauma. Maybe something happened. Maybe there's something going on as to why that person appears like the way they are in the moment. So you always gotta get to the root of the issue if you can. At least make an attempt to get there. And actually, yes, no one posts real life issues on social media. I completely agree. Nobody posts, because like, why would you post? I'm 4 months behind on rent, or like I'm, my kids are struggling in school. I feel like a bad parent. Like people wouldn't post that online because you posted it. You see like your friends post, and they're like, I just made a 7-figure month or something ridiculous. That's what Niagara Falls. Yes, Abby says something about social anxiety in teens. I definitely want to touch more on social anxiety. I definitely want to do that. Abby, I saw your comment. Nothing. Well, not everything on the internet is fake, but it's sometimes fabricated, and like I live in LA, so like I'm in the creative world where like I'll be on the street and I'll just be walking and I'll see somebody like tell somebody what to do. Like, hey, all right, this is what we're gonna do. I need you to act surprised. Like it's scripted. So when I saw that, I'm like, oh, because I would watch these prank videos and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, oh no, like, but like now I know that it's scripted. Um So Netflix and a lot of chill, not an issue. Oh yeah, nothing wrong with Netflix and a lot of chill. Oh, ain't nothing wrong with that. Ain't nothing wrong with that. You uploading late night. I picked up on tendencies. Well, so Better Colin is asking me if I'm getting sleep because I upload late throughout the night. So Better Colin, when I first started social media, I was doing that. I learned really quickly after like 2 weeks that you're gonna burn out if you don't have a system. So now the system that I built allows me to post over and over. Like I have to get an extension of myself. Like my assistants are like family members. My housekeeper is like, I got my housekeeper a Christmas gift this year again because like I need all that help to do all this. Like without the help, I could, and even with the help, I'm still like, how do I post here? How do I post there? So, I have my assistants. Like we have a game plan. Like this social media thing is like it's a game plan. I'm like, all right, I want this video to go out. I don't want that video. I like this. I don't like that. So like it's actually a game plan on how I do this. And Libby, I like Libby's comment. When I say boring, I mean just sitting with somebody and being like content. So like sometimes the stimulation you need is just no stimulation. Just like relaxing, and just like being like a regular person. And like at least for me, like sometimes I just want to sit there and just be me and like just kind of like look at this guy or look at the wall. I don't know, like just just like relax. And actually, yeah, you can exhaust. We can exhaust our bodies. And somebody posted about hyposexuality. That's definitely a thing. What about hyposexuality? I never knew such a thing existed. Sadly to say, but I feel like I may have ADHD and constantly hyposexual. That makes sense. So Monique, yeah, I can see how that would make sense. I don't think ADHD is like one thing. I see it almost like a spectrum, not like like when people hear spectrum, they think of autism, but I think of ADHD as like a wide range of a cluster of symptoms. So you could be hyposexual, and like I sometimes with the sensory issues, I think that can cut into intimacy, right? Like if I don't know, if somebody's like smacking loud in your face, you might like lose like that drive. Now this is a random example, but maybe the sensory issues, or maybe you just like being touched. So like a lot of things can like affect somebody's sex drive. Um, uh, but I know that people need help. Better call. I appreciate you. I wish I could see your name, but I'm calling you like your YouTube name. Your YouTube name. Yes, Kelly, I can definitely make. I actually made one. Actually, no, I didn't. I thought about it, but actually have a Google document of possible topics, and I definitely want to talk about sensory processing disorder. Yes, Kelly, I'll definitely take care of that. And somebody says, "Ooh, this one's good right here. How would past sexual abuse affect ADHD when it comes to hyposexuality? There are times I'm really into sex, but times where it's the last thing on my mind. It seems extremely overwhelming all the time." All right, so I want to start by saying I think all right, so there's no such thing as normal, right? But it's like I think like wherever we think normal is, like I think it's normal for somebody to maybe want to have a lot of sex, and then the next time you're like, I don't want it, right? It depends. Like there's levels to this. And like past like sexual abuse, I mean, it can affect people differently. And this is even like without ADHD. Like a lot of times, like when I had free time, when I was in school, or actually when I was working at the psych hospital back in Georgia, and I had free time, I would go to the patient's charts, right? And I would like read them about the patients. I would read them about them, especially like when I was like training and I was in the forensic unit, like in school before I graduated, right? I would read up the patient's charts. And also, even when I was doing the forensic psychiatry thing back in Virginia, of course, like I read through all my patients' charts because like those are my patients. Like I had to know them. But sometimes I found it to be interesting when I would look at a patient who had committed like a sexual type of crime, right? Or if they were like a registered sex offender, right? And then if I have time, I would scroll through their chart, and then I would see that they were abused and a lot of sexual trauma in the past, and I definitely think that there's a correlation there between the two, like past abuse and either like you know, doing the same thing to somebody else, or becoming a victim again in a different sense, or maybe just having that past abuse and then either becoming hyper or hyposexual. So there's definitely a link there, and I feel like I've seen articles on it. I make sure that I have like an article to reference to, but there's something. There's something. Someone says, "Fuck perfect." I agree. I agree. Or fuck normal. I agree as well. Uh, Trauma and ADHD could be. It could be. Greetings from Canada. I have a. So I can't like reply to emails with like people's medical condition because like that's like it's like HIPAA violation. And I mean I do get those emails, but we can't reply. Like replying would mean that I'm legally assuming responsibility of somebody in like Canada. Like I don't have like a Canadian anything license. Um, uh, let's see if I can pick out some more good questions in here. And actually, speaking of accepting new patients, outside of like Virginia, with the company that I'm with, I'm not accepting any more new patients. And it's funny because I wish it was a better system because there is a problem in this country with mental health, and like I need a system, right? Like the way my social media works is doing good because I got a system. You feel me? So like I need a system on how to like see a lot of people. Because if I open it up all over the place, it's gonna be difficult. And like I'm only gonna put myself in a position to where I can help people. So if I can't like help everybody or like with my limited time, it'll be tough. It'll be tough. What was the question? The I can't read that. Tip for sleep: get a routine. Get a routine. I say get a routine, and try not to be on your phone late at night. Um, yeah, that could help, but sleep is something that is difficult when you go to bed differently, differently every day. You go to bed at 10 o'clock one day, 11, 2 a.m., 9 p.m. Have you tried? I have not personally tried it, Claudia. Like, yeah, telehealth. Like for people who are looking for somebody in Virginia, there's a link somewhere on my page. But outside Virginia, no, we're not accepting any more new people. It filled up a little bit faster than I thought. I don't know. Yeah, it filled up faster than I thought. I don't know. Um, Monique, I've made videos about borderline. I have more in the chamber, so I'll post them. Do men with ADHD and anxiety have a tendency for avoidance behavior? I think well, be careful. Let me be careful. I can see how a man with ADHD and anxiety. I can see how a guy in general would have avoidant type of behavior. But also keep in mind, like the way that somebody was parented, also like plays a factor. Maybe past relationships play a factor. Maybe if they had a string of bad relationships, they're not as like quick to jump into one. But oftentimes in heterosexual relationships, I see that tug of war, with the avoidant guy and then the anxious, woman, in terms of attachment styles. But it can be flipped. It can be the other way around too. It can definitely be flipped. Let me see. How do you study with ADHD? Stay motivated. So I would not look for motivation. I would try and put together a simple routine to give you momentum so you can get to where the motivation comes. Florida. Oh, it's I get so many emails about Florida, and it's tough because I don't know the rules in every state. I think they call like the 5150 in California. I think they call it Baker Act in Florida. I think, but a lot of people in Florida do not seem content with the mental health care there. But you can say that for all 50 states. Can gaslighting and individual increase their ADHD? Jordan says, Jordan says, I swear I'm gonna keep asking. All right, Jordan, you must have asked that question a million times. But gaslighting and individual increase. What? So I don't understand that question. So like, okay, so I don't think ADHD is something that can like be increased or decreased, but depending on how ADHD presents for you, you could do things that make you appear to be a narcissist, or you could be a victim of bullying, right? Because you're easily manipulated. I'll say that. I hope that answers your questions. Tips for being social with mental illness. Uh, Look, I mean, a lot of people have mental illnesses. So, like, you might be struggling to talk to somebody who is struggling to talk to you. Maybe an icebreaker or a compliment to somebody would help. Not big, federal funding. I'll look at it. Oh, Libby, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Um, let me see. I have personal experience. I'd like to share this. Okay, someone else will share. I'll read it out. I have personal experience I'd like to share about this. Before I was diagnosed, I was in an emotionally abusive relationship and was constantly gaslighted. It got to the point over 5 years where I started controlling a lot of those ADHD issues. It was the most I have had my ADHD under control without using medication. I later learned that this was because there were repercussions in place. If I did a certain thing, it would start a fight, so it triggered my fight or flight response. I think it cut you off. I think it cut you off. Uh, Dang, it cut you off. All right, but um, speaking of like gaslighting, like once again, with your ADHD, like with the emotional dysregulation and feeling things too much, sometimes you can set yourself up to be gaslighted, and you don't know you're being gaslit, right, or gaslighted until like after the fact. It's kind of like a trance that, the way I see it, that's like put over you. But normally, like you see people like isolate you away from your family and your friends, and then you're in a good position to be like really manipulated, right? So once again, within the whole spectrum of ADHD and relationships, like you can take this a million different ways. So it's important to know, and I feel like I posted that video before about gaslighting, um, not in like connection to ADHD, but just gaslighting in general. When you question yourself on like small things, you're like, You're like, damn, I know I said this, and the person like convinced you about something that you knew you did, and they told you you did, and you start to believe it, and then you feel like you're crazy, right? But a good narcissist, whether they know it or not, will have you on this loop. Uh, okay. So Richard says so many good questions, um, and Janet came around. I'm gonna get to that in a second because that question caught my eye. Let's get guess. That question caught my eye. But let me read this question from Richard. Says so many good questions. I don't know if mine is getting missed, but I feel like my ADHD is keeping me from leaving a toxic relationship. All right, so I mean, it could be. Once again, I don't know you. It could be, but I think a lot of people struggle to leave toxic relationships. You have to figure out what are you getting from that toxic relationship, right? You're getting something from it, or else you wouldn't stay. Whether it's a comfort, whether it's security, emotional security, financial security, there's something that you're getting from it, and it's making it hard for you to leave because you think that by leaving you be more pain than by staying, and it could be like it could be like vice versa, but yeah, I definitely have a lot of empathy for people who are stuck in toxic situations, and it's tough. Like from the thought of okay, this is toxic to like the intention and the ability to leave. Sometimes it takes a while, So like you have to approach that with empathy and not judge somebody and be like, And I used to do that when I was younger. Like I've definitely come a long way. I used to be like, oh, like why you or her, bro? Like leave, But maybe that's my impulsive ass talking. Like leave. But it's not as easy as that, right? So now I know more, right? Now I know more, and uh now, this question from Janet kind of caught my eye. I can't thank you enough for talking about this. My 6-year-old is extremely ADHD, but she's masturbated since she was little. I addressed a doctor about this a few years ago, and her response was that she's discovered how it feels good at a young age. And no, she's never been touched or abused. This all makes sense now. My 5-year-old has sensory processing disorder, a bunch of other mental health conditions. Yeah, so yeah, all right, I get that comment. Yeah, and keep in mind, and that goes back to the article that I read with Dr. Jory Goodman. His thoughts saying that the most innovative parts of the body are the mouth, lips, tongue, fingers, and genitalia. Right? There's a reason why, like there's a reason why we like sex, like all of us, because like it feels good, and it doesn't cost any money, right? So as an adult, like when you're an adult and you're doing your thing, nobody's gonna like monitor you and like what you're doing and how you're doing it, right? They're like, oh, they're just two adults kicking it. They're just doing what they do. But for kids, sometimes, us as adults, we question like why a child is doing what they're doing, right? Or like when, and for all of us, like think about the first time that you figured out like what like you're like when you realize that you were like a sexual human being, like that's an experience. Some people it happens younger than others, but like like me as a kid, like coming from a religious background, I just like I would see the word sex, and I don't think sex should be like a bad thing, like that we should like avoid talking to the kids about. But then again, I don't have any kids. Maybe I'll have kids, and I'll try and keep my kids from talking about it, even though I know from a professional standpoint. But maybe me, I'm like, oh, like I know how I was as a teenager, so I want to keep my daughter away. But I don't. I think you should talk about these things. But yeah, like it feels good. So when a child, or when like you first realize that you were a sexual human being, it's quite the experience, And I remember being like in 5th grade, and the kind of conversations that I would have with the guys. And like I said, I come from a Christian background, so like we were trained that sex is not a good thing, or you wait till marriage. But I'm like sums up here. I'm like, you really gotta wait. And I don't want to get to that debate. I don't want to turn this into a religious thing. I'm just saying that sometimes when you suppress, someone sexually, like, it does the opposite when they grow up. My personal opinion. My personal opinion. My personal opinion. Um, let me see. It costs if you. I don't read that one. I don't read that one. Let me see another one. Could you openly attend couples therapy? What do you mean openly attend couple therapy? What do you mean about that, Ashley? Um, we left the hypersexuality topic. Oh yeah, yeah. We kind of drifted away from the hypersexuality topic, but people are asking some really good questions. But as the show gets better, as we have moderators, we'll stick with that. So any questions or any like comments on that, I'll get to that first. But I mean, like a week and a half of doing the show, like it's fun for me. I look forward to it. I'm not like 6 o'clock. I gotta come on. I'm like I get to come on. Let me see. Let me get to some more questions on the topic. America is a sex negative culture because of the church. Yeah, and I'd like to know more you all's thoughts on this. But yeah, I mean, I'm still a Christian and I still believe, but there's something to be said about and this is not coming from this is not evidence based information, so I don't want to conflate my thoughts with the evidence, right? Because we go off of evidence based information, like that's when you're looking for a provider or a practitioner, you should be looking for somebody who believes in evidence-based information, right? Not opinions. We don't go by how we feel. We go by the evidence, right? But at least talking from my experience, right? I've seen, and I still believe I'm still a Christian, but I've seen the church, make people feel less than, like, especially with the girls, right? Sometimes as guys, we just got like a free pass. We just got to live life and do what we do because we're guys. Like boys will be boys, but as women, sometimes like you you demonize sex and you make it to the point where like you lose your virginity and like you're a bad person, and then you have all that damage to your self esteem, or you get pregnant, and you get labeled as hypersexual, right? And you may have just been with one person. It could be your first time, who knows? Or if you are actually, let's say, struggling with hypersexuality, right? And you're in a religious environment. If you don't have a safe space to talk about it, you might feel like, you're a heathen or you're a bad person. So like when you believe like the thoughts in your head that don't, agree with the things that you like to believe about yourself, that's a slippery slope. You really, really have to, you know, I don't know, like I don't know, like a good buddy of mine, his girl just got pregnant, so congratulations to him, and he's having a kid in a couple of months, and I was waiting to find out the sex of the child, and I found that it was a girl, and we're like, oh my gosh, because like me and my buddies, we don't have any plans for how we're gonna raise girls, but I mean, if when it's my time to have a kid, I have a girl, I'll just be the best girl dad. But I think it's difficult. It's difficult for women, with the expectations of society and like the box that they're put in. So yeah, I don't have a plan for how I would have a daughter, but I mean, if it happens, I'll just do the best that I can. I'll do the best that I can. Preacher's kids, Randy. I've seen that too. Yes, my girlfriend too, except for watching this. Mr. Terra. Oh, okay, Stacey, I'm happy you got the help. I'm happy you got the help. That's awesome. Let me see. I've talked with her alone. I'll let her know it's natural. There's time and place for. Yeah, I agree. And yeah, like you don't want to make people feel bad about it. Like it is a sensitive topic. It's a sensitive topic, and that's why like anytime when I'm, like of course, like I tell you all, like a psychiatric evaluation when you're talking to a new patient, we're gonna talk about all of that, but you don't really want to pinpoint it, and especially as me as a guy, and like I'm young, I don't want to be like prying and saying, so how many times do you have sex? It's not like that. It's about are you having impairment from too much sex or not enough sex? But if you're good, we're fine. We can skip over it. But there's a way to talk about these things. Uh, ooh, uh, ooh, that's a good one. Mickey Ficky. Ooh. All right. We'll talk about that in a second. I think because marriages are encouraged, people confuse that with sex is bad and sex with someone other than your favorite partner is discouraged. Right. And I don't want to get into the whole religious debate, because people feel how they feel. But at least from a mental health standpoint, it's important to, like, you have to give people a safe space. I'm telling you, like, because, like, at least I think that's one of my greatest superpowers, right? Like, when I listen to somebody and the patient, like, tells me, like, their history, their trauma. Like, I went to Augusta University, y'all. Like, I didn't go to Harvard. I didn't go to Johns Hopkins. I went to Augusta, and nothing against Augusta University, but because, like, I'm proud of my school. I think it's the #1 DMP school in the nation. I love all my professors. I feel the education I got prepared me to do this, or to do my job in mental health, and then obviously to educate on social media. So I love my school, but, like, you wouldn't think of my school first when you think of, like, the top schools in the country. So, like, I don't have, like, the best, like, education in the world. I just listen. I just listen, and I think people appreciate that. Listen, and you don't judge somebody, right? So, not judging why somebody, just don't judge. Like, who are we to judge? Like, you got your own shit. Like, why are you gonna judge somebody? So that's just how I see it. But somebody said, the question about pedophilia. I don't want this. This is all I'll say about that. I'm not gonna link pedophilia to ADHD. Because I have no evidence to do that. But okay, clear up your words carefully. It's not normal, right? For somebody to have, like, those thoughts, right? Pedophilia, that's not a normal thing, right? So if you see that, like, that's not something that we would expect. We would not expect one to have, that type of attraction to a child. So that's something that I, like, it's not acceptable. We should never normalize that. Hear me out. We should never normalize that. But hear me out. For people who struggle with those urges, or people who struggle with, like, attraction to kids, right? Some people actually struggle with that. Put them in an environment where they can have a safe space and let them talk about it. And of course, if they're struggling to, like, manage their impulses, like, we're gonna keep them away from kids, right? Like, the first part is to, like, make sure that everybody's safe. So you're gonna protect kids, or you're gonna protect everybody, right? But there's some people, like I was working in forensic psychiatry before I did the social media thing, and some people really struggle with those urges towards kids. And it's difficult to even think about it, because, like, I have nieces and nephews, and like, if something happens to them, like, I'm gonna try and beat somebody's ass, because I'm like, that's just me protecting my nieces and nephews. But take yourself out of it. If somebody struggles with that, give them a safe space to, like, talk about it, and get help. Don't demonize them for it, but obviously make sure that everybody's safe in the situation. That's the best way to say that. And I don't think it's a weird question. I mean, somebody asked a question, and once again, we should talk about everything, but the way you talk about it has to be, there's a way you talk about things. You joke about certain things, but you don't joke. Like, I mean, like, I know I joke a lot, but I don't joke with that, and with the kids, right? With the kids. But you do need to give a safe space to people who have those thoughts. Get the professional help. Definitely, you need professional help there. And protect the kids. That should be the first thing. Protect the kids. And your school. Hey, Libby, I appreciate it. Shout out to Augusta University. I think you just want somebody who listens. Because if I go for a mental health assessment, like, I don't care if somebody went to Augusta or Michigan State University. Like, I want somebody who, like, listens, and somebody who doesn't look like they're trying to get out of there, and they're like, yeah, like, just waiting so that they can go to Applebee's. Alex, I agree. Right, and it's difficult to think about, that, and people who have those urges, and I think and I'm actually happy we got to this topic. I'm happy we got to it, because think about it, like I cannot relate. Like, if I have a patient who has ADHD, right? I'm like, oh, you got the best doctor in the world. Like I feel like I get you. So I know with confidence I can help you out, right? Um, but if I have a patient with or even hypersexuality, like I can see how somebody would be hypersexual. Like I've been, 17, 18, I've been on college campuses trying to talk to this girl. I won't call that hypersexuality, but like we've been at the mall trying to pick up as many numbers as possible, and like I'm a straight male. So even if I'm married with 3 kids, like I see a beautiful woman, I'm like, oh, this is a beautiful lady. Like you'll appreciate it. Not that you want to go and do anything, but you'll appreciate it. So I get the concept of hypersexuality. Like I get it. So like it's not hard for me to be empathetic towards someone who's struggling with that because I get it. I get it 100%, or I think I get it 100%. But when you talk about people that do things to kids, I don't get that at all. Not at all. So like I have to and like I did this like when I was teaching the students back at Augusta University. We would take them to the psych hospital. The first time that the students went to the hospital, I'll prevent them from reading the patient's charts, right? Because I want you to go in there and treat the people like normal human beings. And then the second time you go to the hospital, we can read through the chart and see what happened to them or maybe what they did to other people or to kids, and then because if you go in there like what they did, the natural human reaction is gonna be like, man, like I don't want to talk to that person. And I can imagine if somebody did something to like a 3-year-old, and let's say I had a 3-year-old at that time, like I would feel different, So, it's gotta talk about it. Gotta talk about it. Definitely gotta talk about it. Now, question up here from Britt: how do you tell your hubby you don't want to have sex and not give in? My husband only touches me when he wants sex. I'm never want to anymore because of that. I always cave in because I don't want to make him upset. Yeah. So Brittany, that I don't know. Like once again, I'm not like a sex therapist, and whenever people when people message me and say, "Oh, actually, I had a patient. Good story. I had a patient who she said that she came in virtually, right? She was depressed, and I got her straightened out, gave her medications, talked to her, and then the second time, like the second or third time I saw her, she was like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much! Like you've helped me out so much." I'm like, "What did I do?" And she said that, "Oh, she's like, oh, when I started taking my medications, like my sex drive came back. I knew I was depressed. Now my husband and my like our sex life is great. In fact, I just got pregnant." I was like, "Oh wow, like things are going great," and that made me like think that like so anything can be tied to like sexuality, like hypersexuality or hyposexuality. So you never know like what affects someone's sex drive. So in this case, she did not know that her desire was lower than usual, and she couldn't connect that to her depression. But once her depression got better and she started to do her favorite activities, she started to her sex drive improved and her sex life improved with her husband. And I'm not saying for the person who asked that question, I'm not saying that you're depressed. What I'm saying here is that a lot of factors affect sex drive. So maybe having a deeper conversation with your husband and like getting to the root of it could be helpful, because something could be impacting your sex drive. And also you you're talking something that it caught my eye, where you said that my husband only touches me when he wants sex. I think that's sometimes a, a male thing. I don't want to say it's an ADHD thing, but like sometimes you know at least in heterosexual relationships, or at least in personal experience, because that's I can speak on that more comfortably. But at least sometimes, like I used to think that maybe it's a guy thing, but like I would think coming up, or like girlfriends that I had in the past, like if a girl was like touching me or kissing me, I'm like I wouldn't get the point of why would you do that, and then just stop, like but like I think it's important and I learned that, and my grandma, shout out to my grandma, she's an OG, she's a big mama, aka OG. She would always say that. She's like, "Oh, women need time, women need time," and I used to like mock her, like, "Yeah, women need time," but like she was right, like women need time to like Like men can just hop into it like that, for the most part, and women need time, So for me, I would get confused. Like I'm like, why is my girl like making out with me and then goes to read a book? That doesn't make any sense because like maybe you associate that with, okay, like now we have to do the Mickey Ficky, right? But I think maybe just explain that to your husband could be helpful, and then like maybe he'll learn over time that like a touch that you could just maybe like touch somebody and then like go mow the lawn or something like that. But like a simple conversation can go a long way. Can go a long way. Let me see. I feel like someone said, so I missed it, but what's the correlation between ADHD and hypersexuality? All right, so this person probably came on late, but I had an article that I put in the chat earlier, and I was saying that, with ADHD and impulsivity and the emotional dysregulation and the likelihood to take chances and be risky, you can have hypersexuality within a relationship or even without. And I talked about how medications, stimulants for ADHD have been shown to reduce sexually transmitted infections in teenagers. So it goes to show that like that untreated ADHD could lead to like a form of hypersexuality. I do believe. So it's important to treat it, so you can get it under control. But early in life, we're distinguishing like hypersexuality versus you know someone who decides to have a lot of sex, right? And it comes with like the impairment. Like if if you think you'd like to have a lot of sex and that's just how you and your partner or partners or whatever, that's how you live, that's fine. But when it comes at a great cost, right? And I would call it a STI a cost, right? Now they're fairly common. People get them a lot, but I would call that a cost. It's like, okay, like how far did you have to go? Like what did you have to give up to do this thing? So missed that part, but good to recap it. Um, let me see what Alicia's saying. Uh, After you've addressed it during a less intimate time, you can remind him during those intimate moments. Hey, honey, we talked about this. I'm just on the mood right now. If you're not concerned about your libido and you're more concerned about your boundaries being respected, he needs reminders. The reminders aren't an insult. Yeah, Alicia. Yeah, Alicia, you should be a therapist. I agree. I agree. Sometimes people just need a reminder, but it's like how you say the thing. Like if you say something to somebody and like it appears like you're just like pissed off, then like you have like you're gonna get some resistance. But if you're just talking from the heart, and you're like, I don't really feel like it. I'm good. I'm straight. Like you would expect somebody to understand that more, right? You would expect it. Communication is key. It's key. It's definitely key. Um, Let me see if I can pick some more out here before I feel like ADHD is so underrated. My typical habit I just think that I'm hyper and have trouble listening. Yeah, Brandon. Some people get it, some people don't. Some people get it, and some people don't. So that's why it's important to talk about it. And cross rain, yes. Sometimes the pills don't work for some people. So you gotta get crafty. You gotta get crafty sometimes. Uh, and Yeah, this comment I like is I have the same issues, and I find it's best to just have people around you that are willing to reassure you and help you know that you're still on the right path. Yeah, no, that's more important in this time than ever before. Like, it's really important because keep in mind, you like collectively, like a lot of us are like not interacting with people as much as we used to do. So, and that's why I love these lives, right? Because like 4 times a week I'm interacting. Of course, it's virtual, right? I can see y'all. Like I can see like the comments and things like that. But interacting with people, is you need human connection. So like you need people around you who reassure you that okay, like you're validating how you feel. But if you're at home and you're isolated, you're working from home, you're doing DoorDash, and Instacart, and everything is brought to you, it can be tough to like connect with the outside world and like remember what it felt like to go outside and like see real people and have those conversations or have your friends come over, right? So the pre-COVID world was a much different one than what we have today. Let me see. It is. I like teasing a mystery. If it's too easy to get, it makes me uninterested. It takes a lot for me to get sexually interested ever. I want to be seduced and not always the one doing the seducing. Then some days I want to be better at seduction and hate that. I'm completely lacking sex drive. Can't think straight enough to be good at anything some days. And look, Ash, look, people are allowed to have like down days. Like you need to have like the space where you can have a down day. And like I think there's a lot of like yeah, there's a lot of shame. I can say that there's a lot of shame that comes with like, sexual issues, like, a low sex drive or even a high one, or erectile dysfunction, like there's a lot of shame that comes with it. And it cuts into your self-esteem. And even me, one thing that I like with the guys is now we're so much more like open. Like we have group messages, like with me and my friends back home in Georgia. They have like a military group chat. I was never in the military, but I got guys that like it's all the military guys and me. But like we talk about these things. We talk about people have relationship issues or erectile dysfunction. It used to be back in the day, like if you couldn't get up, it's like you wouldn't dare tell nobody that, because you tell somebody and before you know it, like people are talking about you, and then like the rumor gets out, oh, it's also okay, and then like that turns into shame, and, so like it's good that we're talking about it, and like the last three, the last 35 years, I think we've made a lot of progress, a lot of progress, a lot of progress. Let me see. I worked on not feeling so hurt when my partner said not tonight, because I sometimes would feel like I was not good enough. Yeah, and yeah, it's important to talk about it, and I think like nobody should have to be forced to have sex, right? Like I'm talking about like within a relationship. Like hear me out. Nobody should be forced to have sex. Sometimes you just don't feel like it, right? Like like if your favorite football team lost in the playoffs, you know, and the mess of your day, that might not be a time that you want to do anything. You just want to like punch the TV, right? You know, that might be what you want to do, or if you failed a test or something like that. So sometimes it's like you just don't want to. And when you grow up, like there's nothing wrong with that. But like the frustration comes when like your partner, like when you're on that same frequency, that I think I wouldn't ignore that. It can turn into a big issue. Like it's best to catch things when it's a small issue before it turns into like a big ass issue. Let me see. I have ADHD. I love sex. Could do it many times a day, but I can control it. When I'm single, I can go without it for years. I don't cheat if I cannot get it from a partner. Does that mean I'm a hypersexual? Like when I'm offered by my partner, I never turn it down. But I can control urges when I don't have a committed partner, or if my partner doesn't want to have it. Of course, I masturbate a lot when I'm not sexually pleased, but it's a form of control. So once again, I don't want to talk about you specifically because I don't want to look like I'm diagnosing you, or whatever. But in this situation, from what like I've heard, um, I would not call that like hypersexuality. Like I would just call it somebody who just like. There's a big difference between someone who likes sex and somebody who is hypersexual, right? And like I said, anybody's definition of hypersexual can be all over the place. But for me, like I kind of draw the line at like, yeah, you like. I mean, too much of water is bad. Like I made a video. I think I posted it here on Facebook, right? But I made a video talking about, the psych patients back at the hospital who would drink so much water, right? And we would call it psychogenic polydipsia, where you drink so much water, like your sodium is thrown off, you can get confused. Like too much water is not good. Too much sex is not, like too much of anything is not good, right? So you could like to have a lot of sex, but that doesn't mean you're hypersexual. Like hypersexual comes like when I'm thinking about it, I think about like, all right, there's some consequences here. Like you can't get it with your partner, right? And you're like, all right, I'm gonna just go cheat, or I'm gonna create like a Bumble account tonight and just I'm gonna just get it over with. I'm gonna just find somebody, or call up somebody that like if it's a point where you're like, all right, I need to do that. Then I'm like, all right, that's becoming an issue because it's messing up like your current relationship. So like you got to pay a price, and the price is you might lose your partner. So that's how I kind of gauge like when is it a bad thing, in my opinion. Let's see. Am I out of water? Mickey Ficky. Is your partner your best friend? Oh, it's not on topic, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I would expect like. I don't know. That's a good question. It's really. I wouldn't expect my partner to be my best friend. But like we have to have like a bond, and do things that best friends can do. But like my relationship, with like a woman I'd be interested in is much different from my relationship with the guys. Like we can play video games all day as a guy, with the guys, and do things that guys do. Sports, go to the gym, and we can do it with your lady too. But like, I don't think it's a deal breaker for me if you know, my wife doesn't want to, play Madden for 7 right? You know, um, uh, I was hypersexual until I started to hit my body. Now I'm not. Very sorry to hear that. Very sorry to hear that. Um, and if you know her, please. I'm 20. I can't follow that question. She was asking me. Oh, I thought y'all was asking me. Yeah, I was like, side conversations in here. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Oh boy, that's hilarious. Let me see. Let me see this question right here. I don't get that question, Trent. For individuals that with ADHD, unhealthy ways of living without the medication. My sister, 5 years older, takes the meds, but I managed to get them off them. I still function, cope. Um, all right, I get you. It's not a topic, but I'll answer it. Some people can, get diagnosed with ADHD, get on meds, and then work their way off and have a high quality of life, exercising, finding a routine, and they can do really well. So medications aren't like necessary, but I think that it simplifies the game for you. Like it makes it a little easier. But there's so many reasons why people might not want to take meds. But I think if you get to the point where once again, it's like, how is this thing affecting you? Like if you get to the point where you feel like you're losing money because you can't close out on deals, or you lose money because you're paying bills late, or you're buying groceries and you can't eat them and you have to throw them away, or you're having arguments, with your partner. You can't hold a job. Like if it's getting to that point, all right, might want to look into all options, including medications. But I mean, if you're just floating, along and you're doing good, some people can like go off the meds and be fine. So it's not like it's not required. Yes, your future wife does want to play Madden for. I've never met a girl who could play Madden for 7 hours like me. I've never seen that before. Oh boy, how often does anxiety, ADHD go hand? I don't know how often, but you see a lot of conditions with ADHD. Anxiety is one of the more common ones. Anxiety and depression, you see those a lot in adults. And adult women with ADHD, we're gonna have that conversation one day. The women with ADHD type of thing, but sometimes it's the doctors being stubborn, or maybe lack of education, or just overlooking it. But we're gonna have that conversation one day. We'll definitely have it. Definitely have it. And also to tie that into tonight's topic, like I've seen women seek like an evaluation and they get diagnosed with ADHD, and they tie that into like risky sexual behaviors or hypersexuality, and then they connect the dots. So sometimes, hypersexuality, right? Or a whole lot of car accidents, right? Or a lot of misassignments can be the thing that makes, like, someone, or like a lady in this case, think to herself like, hey, let me go get checked out. What's going on? And then you find a good provider in your area, and then once you figure out what's going on, you're like, oh, okay, I have ADHD, and then you get the treatment, and then hopefully you'll have the issue, or if you have the issue, it's not causing you as much harm in your life. Let me see. Sam Gary, sure. I'm in school for my DNP and PEDS. So yeah, it's a DNP degree, but it's a psychiatric mental health specialty from Augusta University. And I went to Virginia and I did forensic psychiatry for a year and a half after that. But yeah, DNP, psychiatric mental health, nurse practitioner degree from Augusta University, the number one DNP school in the nation. How do Daryl, just how to find a doctor who will listen to you, but let them know what's going on. All right, let me see if we have any more questions on the topic before we call it a night. Oh, it's been about an hour and a half. It's been a pretty decent size live, just like you did here. What might have like a little side conversation. Sam says it might dual certified. Sam, for sure. And also check out my early YouTube content. Some of y'all might be checking it from YouTube. Checking my early YouTube content. I posted a lot more about my educational background and how you get through school. Some people liked it, some people didn't. And then obviously when I graduated and I was working, I headed into this social media world and posted on TikTok, and one thing led to another, and then I'm here live streaming. But yeah, definitely check out some of the old YouTube content. And my life is much different now than it is back then. And I might watch that video after I get off of this live stream. Because that was 2017. Shit, that was 5 years ago. And I was living at home with my parents. Yeah, wow. Maybe, yeah. Dang, life flies. Mickey, thank you. Life flies. Jan, what's your question? Let's see if we can tie it in with the topic. Dove Sarah, I appreciate you. Let me see. Lindsay said a doctor told her that women can't have ADHD. That's a shitty doctor. I'm sorry. Thanks for sharing your time with all of us. I appreciate you. Alicia, I appreciate you. Thank you. I appreciate you. Sam, I appreciate you too. I say it, boss. Week. Week. Becca. These live streams, they stay. Like, you all know that they stay. Like, if you missed the beginning, like, you can go back and catch it. Like, it's gonna be here on Facebook. It's gonna be here on LinkedIn. It's gonna be here on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter. Like, it's gonna be here. Like, and you should be able to like get to the comments and things like that. Janet, could be, once again, I don't know. Like, you have to got to talk to your doctor. So you can really tie two and two together. But typically people with ADHD do get bored a lot. But I'm not quite sure. All right. So looks like we UT at Tennessee. Looks like we pretty much talked about this topic. Pretty good conversation. And tomorrow is Thursday, and we've talked about ADHD and relationships this week. And as we do this show, I want to figure out how to keep the topic like, or maybe even have a schedule to let people know. Like, I'm thinking out loud right now. Y'all are getting to see me in my in their thoughts, but I definitely want to keep the topic on ADHD and relationships for tomorrow's show, and then tomorrow for next week we could move into a different topic, or we could even make it more broad, like mental health and relationships, and mental health and this, or we could talk about substance use, and I'll figure out how to there's different like things you don't want to say on YouTube, and like maybe mentioning a certain substance by name might get you flagged. But I'll definitely look into that. And Trent, I appreciate that. Thank you so much for checking out this stream. I really, really appreciate that. And I think somebody had like one last question. All right, okay, one last question on the topic. Let me answer Brandon's question before we get out of here. How to deal with like thinking your girl wants to engage in sexual activity just because they touch you, kiss you. It's almost like I get upset because we don't, even though it wasn't implied that we were. So, Brandon, you might have missed it earlier in the stream. I talked about, I think this is like a male and female thing. I'm speaking from personal experience, in heterosexual relationships. I don't want to talk about, same sex couples because I don't know the answer. So, somebody can educate me on it, but I don't know the answer. So let me not speak for a community that I don't know what, like maybe it's the same, but at least from my personal experience, and like my grandma was explaining to me, like women need intimacy. Like I know women who could just get hugs and kisses and they'd be fine. Like they don't necessarily have to have sex. Whereas guys, like a lot of times we think to ourselves, like, why'd you just kiss me for like, you know, you hopped in my lap and kissed me for like 5 minutes and you just like walked away and like drove to the park, So sometimes I think communication, is gonna be helpful. Like it's really a conversation between you and your partner, and maybe letting her know like, hey, like, um, maybe like this is what I expect when like you do this, or this is where my mind goes when you do this. Like, can you let me know, or like, how often are you gonna do this? Because like you don't want her to get you riled up, and then like she just goes to like, make a sandwich, or like, goes to, mow the lawn or something, and then like you're ready to go. That can, give you frustration. So I think having that conversation, and luckily you just have to have it with your partner, because she's that's the person that we're talking about here. So I think good communication can, help solve it, but it might be a little kind of awkward at first, when she's like, I didn't know that there's an issue, and you're like, that's a big issue, by learning sex and affection are not the same thing. Yes, so I think the women, get this concept a little bit more than, the men. I think y'all understand it more than me. Like it doesn't make sense to me, regardless of my degrees. Like I don't understand that concept. I'll never understand it, to be honest. I'll never understand why a woman will come hug you and kiss you and all that stuff and just walk away. Like why your girl would do that, or do all that and then go scroll on TikTok. I'll never understand it. But you'll pick up on tendencies. You'll have the conversation with your girl, and then you'll understand the fact that you don't understand it, and then you know how to proceed with it. So, oh boy. And someone said something about ADHD and entrepreneurship. I don't know where that's at, but yeah, I can speak on that. I will definitely speak on that. Um, one of these days, figure out, maybe dedicate like a week to it and talk about it, because I was on a podcast today and I spoke a little bit about having ADHD as an entrepreneur, and I told the lady on the podcast, a story about me coming to California last year. I moved to LA last year, and got my hand in some different business ventures, and I lost at least $20,000. Fucking around with the wrong thing, so maybe it could have been my ADHD, I don't know. But as an entrepreneur, if you go up to bat, sometimes you'll hit a home run, sometimes you're gonna swing and miss. So like I've swung and missed, a couple of times, and it's been painful. Like losing a lot of money is not fun at all. You get pissed off at yourself for doing things like that. But it's a fun ride. I'm not saying it's fun to lose money, but like once you reframe it, I can laugh about it now. But like last year, this time as I'm losing the money, I wasn't too happy. But I think that's a great topic to definitely talk about. I think that's a great topic to definitely talk about. So we'll definitely talk about that as we keep going with these live shows. So I'm gonna call it a night for now. This is a really good live. I like this one. I think the playback for people who just joined or joined after the fact, will be good. And hopefully this doesn't distract y'all from like your work. Like you can play the live while also doing your homework or whatever, or cleaning the house. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, this is a great live. I had a blast Tomorrow is the 27th, Thursday. We'll be right back here. Same thing, same time, 6 on the West Coast, 9 o'clock on the East Coast. So I'll see you all then. Peace.